would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to Tuesday, folks. We're cruising right into the week. I got a very interesting message from a listener. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. If you'd like to get in contact with me yourself via email, you can send those to therebel@therebelbroker.com, or if you prefer to use the website, you can head on over to therebelbroker.com, click on Contact the Rebel Broker, and use the form there to send along any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions that you might have. As I mentioned yesterday, we did draw a winner for the first $50 Amazon gift card. Now, that is drawn from the folks who have joined in and taken the survey, the show survey. I'm happy to have released that out yesterday and picked a winner. Just so you're aware, there will be another winner on November 1st, so we'll be drawing again, so it's not too late for you to be eligible for the drawing for the next $50 gift. Please head on over to the website, therebelbroker.com, click on the red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to Support the Show. Go ahead and provide an email address, and use in both places that you're asked for your email address, please make sure to use the same email address. In order to be included in the drawing, you do need to use the same email address in both positions. And of course, if you are someone who took the survey before I announced that we would be giving away $50, you're still in the drawing for that as long as you provided an email address. If you did not provide an email address, you're going to have to go ahead and do that again because, of course, I can't give you a gift if I don't know where to email it to. Okay. The only other thing, and this was, I had a listener suggest this, and I totally want to steal the idea. I've been calling it the Insiders Club, the Rebel Insiders, trying to figure out a good name for it. And the idea is to go with the name The Rebel Underground, and I love that idea. If you would like to join the Rebel Underground, please, I wish I'd thought of that. I'd love to be able to claim credit for that. Just text the word Rebel Broker to 44222. That's the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222 to join the Rebel Underground, and you'll be, as the perks of being involved, you'll get the occasional newsletter, probably about once a month, that's going to talk about different real estate-related issues or other cool stuff, maybe a little behind-the-microphone type discussions as well. But you'll also get first crack at new stuff. So when I create new content that's designed to help you, whether it's a how-to or something like that, you folks will find out about it first, and usually you'll get access to it first. So if you'd like to join the Rebel Underground, text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. Okay, I've got a couple of things. I wanted to talk a little bit about construction spending, but I think maybe we'll save that for later in the show because I want to make sure I have time for this one. For those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I'm not super enthusiastic about condos. I'm slightly more enthusiastic about townhomes. And I'm slightly more enthusiastic about single-family residential homes that are in HOAs. And then I'm most enthusiastic about single-family residential properties that don't have HOAs. And I think, I don't think that story's ever changed. I think when I've talked about properties in terms of levels of preference, that's always been the order that I've put them. But I got a message from a listener the other day that really got me thinking. This is someone who lives in Southern California. And he invests exclusively in condos and townhomes. In fact, according to him, now he apparently owns 5 properties, and 4 of them are condos. One of them is more of a townhouse. What would you call them in the East Coast? A brownstone, I guess. It's that style thing where things are really shoved together tightly. You usually share 2 walls unless you're a corner unit kind of thing. And he swears by them. And I thought I'd go over why, because, it's not all about what I think is the right way to go. It's all about finding the way that works for you, that fits in with your comfort level, and being able to, and the other part of it is resisting the tendency towards confirmation bias, right? If there's one thing that you want to shed yourself of in real estate, particularly if you're trying to invest, really in anything, is to get rid of your confirmation bias. And that is when we look for information that basically confirms something we already believe, right? And instead, you need to let the facts that you come across stand on their own. So my bias has always been, my personal bias and where I would want to live has always been, I don't want to deal with an HOA. I don't want other people being able to tell me what to do with my property. And the reality is, for other folks, because other folks are being dramatically successful doing it this way, that doesn't necessarily need to be something that you worry about in a home that you're treating as an investment. So don't let those personal, I don't want to invest in this property because I wouldn't want to live there style thinking hold you back. That's something that I wrestled with for a long time, and I occasionally feel it coming back in whenever I'm evaluating a property. So, for instance, when we were talking about Fort Wayne, Indiana the other day, I was getting very enthusiastic about this property that I came across. And I was sharing the information with you here online. I've actually reached out to the listing agent and asked for more information, simply because I could make that deal work right now. I could make that purchase right now and start making a little money. And I'm kind of intrigued by the prospect. So I'm going to find out more, figure out a little bit more. I've done a little research on the neighborhood. In terms of crime stats and more crime versus less crime in Fort Wayne. So maybe we can talk about that at some other point. Maybe I'll do the video I'm going to do relating to analyzing properties. Maybe we'll include those details in there. But we live in an age where all of this data is available at our fingertips on the internet. So it makes it so easy to evaluate these things from a distance. But anyway, my point being that you need to not have that confirmation bias influencing you. You need to be able to sit back and say, well, you know what? Instead of thinking about the downsides or of a place you don't even want to live in, you need to start thinking about the upsides. So let me go through some of the things that this listener shared with me relating to their experience in investing in real estate in Southern California. And as I said, 4/5 of the investments in condos, 1/5 in a townhome style thing that's also got an HOA. And if I'm not mistaken, it's just architecturally a townhome, but it's actually organized as a condo. So he doesn't have to take care of anything outside of the house. It's the roof, the ground, common area is all covered. And that's pretty typical for anything where there's an HOA, to be quite honest. But I think he also mentioned that he doesn't even have to worry about things inside the wall, that the HOA even covers like the pipes and wiring inside the wall, which would indicate more of a condo organization to me. But anyway, that's kind of beside the point. And he got into it and said, Robert, if you're investing in the properties you say you want to invest in, you're constantly worried about a ton of other things. You're worried about whether or not you're going to replace a roof. You're worried about whether or not the landscaping is getting done. You're worried about all these other things. And for me, I'm not having to save for that stuff. The most complicated things I have to worry about are toilets and if I'm providing them, appliances. And he says he doesn't provide appliances. So he pretty much, all he has to do is worry about toilets, heating systems, and air conditioning, which is actually kind of nice. He says, and for that, and I don't have to, and I have a pool for them that I don't have to worry about insurance. That's an amenity they can use or not use at their leisure. They're totally their pick. There's a workout room that they can use if they want or if they don't want. So there's all these amenities that folks can use, and I pay my flat $275 a month for all that stuff. That covers a portion of the insurance because of the stuff that the HOA covers. So my actual insurance costs are lower because I need to cover less for my condo units. They're so much easier to manage. I don't bother with a property management firm. I take care of the property management myself because literally The only calls I'm ever going to get are going to be something relating to a fuse is blown out or a toilet's not working or a sink is busted. It's going to be those kinds of things, not these big catastrophic things that you might get with a single family residential home. So in terms of his comfort level, and maybe I should stop saying that. In terms of him reducing, because what have we talked about before? Even in analyzing my own home, we've been talking about minimizing the headaches. Well, talk about minimizing the headaches. There's no headaches there at all. Now, he says in the approximately 8 to 10 years that he's held these properties, I don't think he's had all of them for that entire period of time, but his first one was about 10 years ago. He says he's had zero issues. Nothing. He rents them, and then they just go, and he just makes money every month. He never gets a call. No one ever comes and says the lawn needs to get mowed. He never has to worry about neglect relating to typical upkeep. Never has to worry about painting the place. Never has to worry about the roof repairs. He just pays his HOA fees. The folks live in there, and the worst he has to do is when those folks move out, he's got to paint the interior, and depending on the situation, replace the flooring, replace the carpet, whatever. And that's it. That's pretty worry-free. So if you can find a place where it all works out, where you can pay the HOA fees and pay the mortgage and pay all the other holding costs, and still come out with a profit at the end, with being in the black, well, that makes it a pretty easy choice. Now, when I rented the property I live in now for 3 years. During that time, I had a number of things that I had to deal with. I had a sewage issue, which wouldn't have been an issue if it had been like a condo or something. My particular home has a weird lift station on it where the sewage collects for a period of time and then gets pumped up a hill to a sewer. So it's better than a septic tank, but when I'm responsible for that pump that does that work. So there was something happened with that. So there's absolutely things that can step in and cause problems for you if you have properties that potentially have more failure points or issues that could happen, right? So now he's got me thinking that I need to broaden my potential interest in those properties. But the same things we've talked about before become an issue. So here's the downside. Number one is there's now an HOA that can indicate what can and can't be done on the property. Again, a minor thing, but nothing he needs to worry about because he doesn't live there. All he has to do is communicate to the tenant what the rules are, and they need to follow those rules. Next, you don't potentially control what that HOA fee is. That HOA fee can get raised. Now, he indicates that there's typically a X percent increase in HOA fees with a couple of the places that he owns, that he says absolutely undercuts or comes in far below the percentage increase that he would put on rents. So he says it never really catches up to him where it starts eating the money he's making. He still continues to make more profit each year on the property just based on rents increasing. And he says the increases don't always stop. In fact, he said on one of the properties, they actually reduced the payments per month because the reserve was put up at this ideal level. So there's absolute flexibility in there. But what is that? How do you anticipate that? Well, you need to really closely evaluate HOAs. You need to evaluate who's in charge. You need to make sure and look at those HOA records and make sure that it's being run responsibly. So I guess I need to change my attitude and stop saying, you don't want to buy. If you're someone who wants to buy and hold, if you want to buy a property and you want to rent it out, in terms of desirability, you need to decide how that works for you. Now, in the community that I live in, the condo thing doesn't tend to be super desirable. The single family residential feel, it could still perhaps be a townhome that still has that single family feel, but folks are most interested in doing the single family thing in the communities that I tend to serve and the community where I live. But let's look at this from a different perspective. Now, all of his units are in a downtown area where there's a lot more density. So the type of person he's catering to would really prefer that kind of living where there's not a lot of other stuff that they need to worry about. They want that worry-free place to live. And a condo in a high-rise or in a medium-rise, depending on where you're buying, makes a lot of sense for them. So, of course, you always want to try to gravitate more towards the properties that are going to give you the biggest bang for the buck. And if condos do, and this is very true in a lot of downtown areas, if condos are really the thing, if condos are really what folks are tending to live in, absolutely make those part of your strategy. So instead of having a pretty firm list of preference, I'm going to say from now on, go with what makes the most sense for the area you're in. If you're seeing way more condos for rent that aren't going off the market, well, maybe that tells you that condos aren't as much in demand and you need to go with something that's going to provide someone with that more of a single family feeling kind of a lifestyle. But look at the marketplaces, talk to the folks in the area, talk to property management firms and ask them, what's the big difference here? What is the motivating factor? If I want to talk about what the majority of folks who are renting are looking for in this area, what is it? What are the things they prefer? Do most of them prefer that single-family residential home? Do they prefer the condo? And let it be something where it fits your plan and it fits the market that you're trying to get involved in. I know it sort of opened my eyes. I don't even have any searches for my personal investments. I don't even have anything running that checks for condos and townhomes. So as of today, that has changed, and I've now got searches running for that to see what makes sense. I'm not searching for condos in the area I live in immediately in Morgan Hill, but I am running a search for condos in downtown San Jose. There are some developments down there that make a lot of sense. It tends to be a little bit more pricey, but it fits with the lifestyle of a downtown dweller. So, as I said, don't go with that confirmation bias of what you would personally prefer. Go with what the numbers tell you makes sense in terms of what's most likely to give you a little bit of a return that works for you. Because remember, once everything is said and done, it really is just math. You just need to plug in the numbers and figure out what makes sense and then move from there. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break here for a second, but we'll be right back after this. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We just wrapped up a conversation about broadening your horizons a bit. I guess I've always sort of poo-pooed the idea of investing in condos and townhomes, and I had a listener who has pretty much based their business on that and done very well. So just sort of did a really quick discussion of what kind of things you should be thinking about, what niches you might be filling, and really letting the market talk to you instead of letting your own personal biases play that much of a part in what properties that you pick. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I wanted to talk a little bit about construction spending. There's a lot, so much of what we analyze here is often sort of picking out what's contradicting each other, right? Where in one sentence they'll tell us that construction, the confidence for construction folks, for the home builders, is super high and everybody's jazzed. But at the same time, we look at data that shows that the construction of new homes is at a historic low. We talked about this, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we were comparing the rate at which new homes are being built right now to historical numbers going all the way back to the 70s. And there's really only only been two very short period of times where the level of construction that we're currently at has been this low. We are ridiculously on the low end of construction, nearly the lowest as far as sustained periods of time. Really, I think the lowest in the history that we tend to see, going at least back to the 70s. And that's reflected in what we're experiencing. We're seeing ridiculous costs, and a lot of that has to do with the fact we just aren't creating enough homes. So I came across an article from Calculated Risk, and it gives some interesting data for August. And let me just read this off for you. The U.S. Census Bureau of the Department of Commerce announced today that construction spending during August of 2016 was estimated at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of $1,142.2 billion. 0.7% below the revised July estimate, which is goofy. There's no point in comparing month to month because remember, seasonal changes would clearly explain that. So what do we want? We want the year-to-year number. That's the one that's important. And what's interesting enough is the folks at Calculated Risk put in bold the percentage below July as opposed to the percentage versus last year, which is far more important. So the August figure is 0.3% below the August 2015 estimate. So 1 year ago, it was 0.3% higher. So we're not seeing a trend that makes sense. Now, think about what all this encompasses, right? We supposedly are seeing these dramatic increases in confidence compared to a year ago, but then we see less action this month relating to construction than we did last year at the same time. Now I'm going to go ahead and share a chart that comes along with this particular story that really kind of tells an interesting story. It's a compressed chart, so it goes January's going all the way back to 1993. Just each line vertically is a January. And what's really interesting is the only construction that has increased from last year is non-residential construction. If you look at residential and public, they're both down. Public is way down from the same time last year. Residential is also down from the same time last year. In fact, you could argue that there's kind of a little mini peak last year that we seem to be dropping from. But again, the shock comes in when you look at these numbers compared to January of 2006 where we hit our peak. It's just ridiculous. In fact, private residential spending has been generally increasing, but is 34% below the bubble peak. If you look at some of these charts that go way back to the 70s, it's even more shocking. So there's absolutely this narrative that folks want to share that it tells a story of confidence. But when you look at the actual actions, when you look at where we are, none of it really reflects that. Public construction is now 17% below the peak in March of 2009 and only 3% above the austerity low level of February 2014. On a year-over-year basis, private residential construction spending is up 1%. Non-residential spending is up 4% year-over-year. Public spending is down 9% year-over-year. So these are not numbers that leave me with a lot of encouragement in terms of alleviating the supply problem. I don't think and they've talked about consumer confidence being up this month, but you can even find contradictory stories on that. On the one hand, you'll find consumer confidence, and it depends on how you define consumer confidence. You'll find stories that go on it from an economic aspect, and those tend to be showing folks are feeling a little bit better. But if you look at consumer confidence based strictly on the real estate marketplace, well, then it's a different story. You're not seeing quite the level of confidence that you're seeing in other things. But, a lot of these things that relate specifically to the economy can be leading indicators of what you might expect from buyers moving forward, depending on how positive they feel about the economy. According to this, consumers' assessment of current conditions improved in September. Those that said business conditions are good, however, decreased from 30% to 27%. Those saying conditions are bad also declined from 18 to 16. Those who said jobs are plentiful increased from 26.8 to 27.9. And those who said jobs are hard to get decreased from 22.8 to 21.6. Americans were also more confident about the short-term outlook in September, while those who expected business conditions to improve over the next 6 months decreased from 17.6 to 16.5, but those expecting conditions to get worse also declined. So some middling, concerns, but folks in general seem to be thinking that things are going to get better. So how does this fit into us in the real estate world? Well, I think what needs to happen is that these expectations need to be met. If folks really believe that jobs will increase, if they expect to be, expect incomes to increase, those folks need to see those actually happening, I think, before this confidence bleeds over into action or people actually being willing to do things that would represent real confidence. Now, nothing's really changed on the housing side of confidence. That's all still relatively negative. Sellers are happy, buyers are not. But when sellers talk about the prospect of being a seller, they don't like that idea. And my theory, is that they don't like the buyer side of the equation, because if you're a seller, typically you're about to become a buyer. So I don't think folks want to sell because they don't want to become buyers. And again, I think that's why we're seeing a huge chunk of the people who are selling are people who are moving to far less expensive areas of the country than where they're selling, so that they're taking advantage of that difference in geography to put some more money in their pocket. Now, one other thing before we close up tonight, I wanted to mention an interesting thing for consumers. It's really not a real estate thing, but I'm sure most of you have read the articles or heard the articles about Samsung phones that are blowing up. Well, I'm not sure what Samsung is making their stuff out of, but we also need to worry about Samsung washers exploding. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission released a warning that several homeowners reported they heard a loud boom when doing their laundry while using a top-loading Samsung washer. Since early 2015, 21 cases have been reported. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's a model number here that I can share with you. I guess it's just their top loaders. Samsung said in a statement that it is working with U.S. regulators to address any potential safety issues. It acknowledged that in, quote, rare issues, the washing machines may experience abnormal vibrations when customers are doing bulky laundry. The vibrations may pose a safety risk, the company said. The company urges owners to use the low-speed delicate cycle for washing bulky items like bedding or water-resistant materials. Homeowners with top-loading Samsung washers can check their serial number, and I will include a link to the website to see if any further precautions or steps need to be taken. So if you've got yourself a Samsung top-loading washer, you can follow the link on my website to find out if you need to be worried about your particular Samsung top-loading washer. All right, folks. Once again, I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to spend it with me. If you'd like to get in contact with me, feel free to send an email to therebel@therebelbroker.com. And if you've got a couple of extra minutes, head on over to iTunes or whatever tool you use to consume the show and give the show a little love. Reviews and ratings are really what helps build the audience. And I'm all about growing the show, so I'm hoping you will help me accomplish that. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you all next time.